VLOGMAS. Today I wanted to answer a question from a marathoner who is also a widow, and she asked me something that I've never talked about before, and I hope it's helpful to her and helpful to you if you are also a widow, or if you are just someone who wants to learn more about it and support your friends. This is her question. Her name's Erin, so thank you, Erin, for the message. I've been following your vlog since my husband passed of suicide in 2017. I can't thank you enough for your videos and being so real with your feelings and emotions while telling your story. It made me feel less alone in my struggle. Me too, Erin. That's why I keep doing it. I was wondering if you had any advice for me or could speak on this topic in one of your videos. How to honor your late spouse while in a new relationship. I've been dating the past few years and always find it difficult to bring my boyfriend into the grieving part of my life. Losing my husband is part of me, and keeping my feelings about it inside, I feel like I'm keeping a huge part of myself from my partner. I'm curious how you share that part of yourself with the unicorn who seems like a great guy. Any advice would be helpful. Yes, I definitely have some advice, or I can just share with you how we have managed it. So for me, it was always something, being a widow was something that I didn't bring up with every person that I met, because I went on many a disastrous date before I met the unicorn. But I knew when I started dating that that would be something that would be difficult. But what I learned quite quickly is when you date in your 30s, no matter who you meet, we're all coming to the table with some sort of life. Whether it's divorce, whether it's kids, whether it's like life experiences, whether it's being a widow, raising a child with special needs. And so that was something that like very quickly became apparent to me. And something that was on my like list when I started manifesting the person that I wanted to meet. I wanted him to have been through stuff. I knew I would not mesh well with someone who had a pretty easy, simple life without struggle or trauma or loss. And that may sound weird to you, but it was very important to me because I needed someone who had already been through some stuff, and I would know how they would either deal with things in the future or also be able to handle me and what I bring to the table, because I'm very well aware that a widow who became a widow at 33, raising a child with special needs, that is, you know, that's some stuff, that's some life. So I was looking for a grown-up. I was like very mindful of that. And when I came home from my first date with the unicorn, I said to the woman who's watching Thomas, I was like, I think I just met the first grown-up. So he has had life experience, and I think that that was really important to me. I also knew that it was important to me to meet someone who was very self-assured and who could know that my grief and my sadness has nothing to do with him. So, you know, what's helpful is pretty early on, I shared with him, like, this has nothing to do with you and it has nothing to do with our relationship. Yes, it's part of me, so it is, you know, it is part of what's going on, but he's never been like threatened by my grief. He's never been like, oh, you can't have photos of him up, like, oh, I don't want to hear about him. He's very respectful of Jeremy, and my advice would be like, bring up your grief and bring up your situation and then gauge how your partner reacts to it, because it is a big part of you. it would be like, say you started dating someone who, this is like such a trivial example, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, say you start dating someone and they have a hobby, like they flippin' love hockey, and when hockey's on, like nothing else matters. Or they love motorcycles and they have to ride their motorcycle like 3 times a week. That'd be like you saying to that person, yeah, we can date, but that is over. And that's just not fair. I know that's a very trivial comparison, but to me, it's very similar. You know, I don't ask him to give up parts of his life, and he doesn't ask me to give up parts of mine. We mesh. And he's more of the mindset of, he just really feels for Thomas and Thomas losing his dad. And, you know, he'll often say like, I just wish he was here to see Thomas. I just wish he was here to see how much he's changing and growing. And I agree. So he knows that that's a part of my life. It has been hard, I will say that, and he has been wonderful. I'm gonna bring up this this to reference because it's so meaningful and important in our relationship. I sent him this article, and I'm gonna link it down below, and I've referenced it a ton, and it's something that I would keep in your back pocket if you're a widow. And it is, ooh, it gets me every time. It's called "For the Man Who is Brave Enough to Love a Widow." Because it's true. It's true. It takes a certain kind of person to come into this situation. And it talks about, you know, different things to keep in mind. So it says like, please don't try to fix her. She's not broken. She will need a warrior, but not in the sense of fighting her demons or trying to fix her pain, so please don't. You won't be able to fix the sadness, reminders, the special days that make her retreat from you. Just hold space if she needs it, and know she will be back to you once she feels what she needs. And that is so true. It says, she needs you to accept the admiration and love she still feels for her late husband. That love does not change after death, and she still has a portion of her heart that belongs with him. Doesn't mean there's less space for you, but rather her heart expands when she decides to be brave enough to open it again. So good. This is so good. It is such an important article, and I sent it to him because it was pretty obvious early in our relationship that this was something different, and it really freaked me out. I was never looking to be like dating around a lot. I was never like, I'm very decisive, and I really like time to myself, and I don't like my time being wasted. So I was very happy to spend a lot of time alone. And then once we met, and I was like, oh, this is someone that I actually want to see a lot and I'll give up my free time for. It was a lot of processing. So we started dating in February. We met in January, and he and I say that it wasn't until probably the fall that we kind of like settled in. And there, because it was long distance, I would see him for a few days and then he would go home and then he would come back. When he would leave, it was actually like the ideal situation for me because I had so much to process and he had so much to process. So on his drives, he could do that, and then I could do that on the days when he wasn't here. But without realizing it, there were some times where I was like much quieter and I was processing my feelings because I am like very present and mindful, and I don't want my feelings to, I didn't want my grief to be pushed aside because I'd done so much work, and I knew that I hadn't gotten that far to just like squash it and pretend everything was fine. Because we all know she's a real bitch, that grief, if you've read Finding Your Cave. But I also wanted to hold space for myself and space for him and respect him. So there was a lot of processing and a lot of talking things out. And he says like he read that article quite a few times he saved it and found it to be really helpful. I'm not even sure where I found it initially, but I will link it down below. It is so well written and every point is just so bang on. I would say don't be ashamed of your grief. Don't feel like it's something that you have to hide, and you will find someone who can hold space for it. Because it's not, like, you've already suffered enough. You don't need to continue to suffer to feel like this is something that you need to push aside to make someone else comfortable. Like, you come first, your comfortability. And I just sort of feel what feels right. I specifically told him like dates so that he knew. And the first time that we were dating, and it was the anniversary of Jeremy's death, he was very, you know, self-assured and loving, and was like, I'll be here if you want me to be here. I will make myself scarce if that's what you would prefer. And then I'm pretty sure he ended up taking time off so he could be here. A big thing for me that I've learned since Jeremy died is learning how to not push people away who are showing up for me. I'm sure many of you can relate to not wanting to feel like a burden, and I'm sure many of you can relate to reaching out to people and them not showing up for you. And the more times that you do that, or the more times you're hurt, the less times you want to do it. And that was my experience. People turning their back on me or on us when Jeremy was alive, or just being like, well, you seem fine online, so clearly you're fine. Check on your friends, even your strong friends. But that was something that I really learned in my second year of being a widow, was like allowing people to show up for me. And that was a big turn in our relationship, I think. He is very open to me talking about Jeremy, because he will always be a huge part of our lives because of Thomas. Like, that's his dad. That's someone we talk about. Just the other night, I heard the unicorn putting Thomas to bed, and there's that huge picture on Thomas's wall with all the different pictures of Jer, the Red Wings one. And the unicorn's like, ah, that's your dad, and he's watching you, and he's here with you, and he loves you. And like he is a unicorn. I was like in the other room just sobbing. If you haven't read Finding Your Cape, I talk about it in there, about how, like, if you suppress it, it's gonna come around. And if you continue to suppress it, it's gonna show up even when you don't want it to. Whether it's illness or physical pain or mental stress or doing things that you just can't even believe that you're doing, and you're acting out, or you're anxious, or you're depressed. Like, grief is relentless, and she is not going away. So whether it's you're a widow like Erin and like me, or you've lost a parent, you're allowed to talk about people that you've lost. And my therapist always reminded me, two things can be true at the same time. You can be grieving and sad, and you can be joyful and in love. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Two things can be true at the same time. So you're not being disrespectful to your late husband by finding love and by wanting to get married and have a life. But I think if you are suppressing that to make your new partner comfortable, you are disrespecting yourself. One thing, I don't think he'll mind me sharing this with you, but I don't know if I've ever shared this. The first time I told him about Jer is before we met, I felt like, let's get the big three out of the way and see if he still wants to even drive here and meet me. It was like, I have this many million views on YouTube, I'm on the radio, I have a special needs son, and I was a widow at 33. Like, what do you want? But the first time he said, you know, we were just talking, and finally he told me about his ex-wife and that he had a daughter, and he asked like, oh, so like, are you divorced? And then I told him, and his reaction, I was like, okay, here we go. He said, I don't know, I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying while I'm telling you this, but he said, no one pays attention to the people who are left behind by suicide. Everyone focuses on the person who struggled with mental health and took their life. And I just felt so seen. And like, that was huge for me. And that was his first response, was like, no one thinks about the person who's left. So I feel like, you know, and he has said many times when I've been like crying, or like just the other night we were driving looking at Christmas lights and I started sobbing because I got triggered about something with my grief, just randomly. Turned out it was the 3.5 year mark, which I didn't realize. He always says like, I know what I signed up for. I know I'm here. Like, and I just wish that for everybody. Like, he always knew I was a widow. He always knew that Thomas had special needs. And he shows up for me day in and day out. And that is my advice to you. Find a unicorn. I don't know. I get asked like every day if he has a brother. No, he does not. Anyway. This is, of course, longer than I ever expected, and I did not think that I would cry, and I need to get back to studying and post this, but I hope that that was helpful, Erin. Just know you're not alone, and know that you deserve love, and you also deserve to have a safe space where you can honor anyone in your life that you've lost. Okay, thanks for watching. I'm gonna go back to studying about Ibsen and Tennyson. Okay, thank you for watching. Lace up, subscribe, become a marathoner. Life's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And as a teaser, in a couple days, I'm gonna answer more questions, but they're lighthearted, and the unicorn and I are gonna drink. We're gonna play truth or drink, so stay tuned for that messy video that I will probably ask my mom not to watch. Thanks for watching, bye.